disrupting all the electronics. So.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I just wrote a post about this the other day. I burnt out all the light bulbs in my space because my energy was just running so clean. And that happens often with technology too, the little glitches. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. There's like a whole other dimension to that conversation that we could dive into right now, how that kind of fiery electrical energy can create those glitches, and they can actually, when we're trying to manifest or create something, hold our desires off if we don't enter into that calm space of equilibrium to allow.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to get into that neutral space, that neutral mind. And, I mean, especially if you're fired up about something, you've got a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. So we were just about to dive into the shadow a bit. Um, so I was sharing about a woman that I met recently today. She's really beautiful. Her work, her art is around celebrating the shadow, celebrating the ego, celebrating separation. And I think it's really beautiful and really important on our planet right now to do that. And I would love to get your take on shadow work, what that means to you, what the shadow represents in your dimension.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's about, it's the same as with everyone. We've kind of suppressed these things throughout childhood and even throughout other aspects of ourself. It's all kind of happening in the now. And as we've suppressed this thing and not looked at it, it really is a spot that we have to go into. And you really have to dive in and really allow to like look at these things and like to accept these parts of yourself. The more you don't, the more you're just going to continue in your cycles basically, and just kind of running around and around and around until you evaluate it. And as kind of what's going on in the reality, it's not really allowing people. I mean, if you're in this journey, the evolution kind of process is sped up, and it's really not letting you like not look at your shadow. You're having to kind of think, well, these things are coming up on their own now, where it used to be you had to kind of dive in and evaluate your emotions and really kind of seek to kind of go in after those things. But whatever's going on in the reality in the last, I would say 18 to 24 months has really kind of pushed everything forward up to the front. And now everything is on the surface. And especially in my life, like things that I had thought, oh yeah, I've gotten that worked out. Like, I'm really good with all of that. Oh no, has totally resurfaced and things, deeper aspects of the things that I thought I had cleared, especially relating to like anger in my life. And so like in really diving in and seeing like, where's the root cause? How can I like basically hold space for myself? And I even encountered into like a lucid vision space I was in while I was in deep meditation, where I was like holding my child self in the situation from this trauma I had in childhood that was kind of related to my anger, which as I went deeper, I really didn't realize that was the core when I thought I had dealt with it earlier. So the important thing is not real, like thinking like you got it like whipped, like, there's levels to it. And as you like dive deeper into yourself, the more you get like, oh yeah, I got that. There's just a little bit left. I've just noticed that in my life, that you really have to be like open to say, how deep does this go? And how much do I need to really feel it? Because if you did it like half-ass at all, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's very true. There's always more layers than you think there are, or than we think there are.
Totally.
When I started really deep diving into I'm going to call them the more, how do I want to call them? The sharper parts of my nature, we're going to call them the sharper parts. When I started to dig into those parts of my shadow, my guidance was to embody it fully, to get into it and to embody it and to celebrate it and to really feel it, experience it viscerally in my body so that alchemy could happen. And when I let myself go there, so much of the charge would be released, or dispelled than in the moments when I would go into the analyzing and the trying to figure out its origins and all of that. It was just such a really, it was a beautifully cathartic experience for me to do that and get into my full embodiment of shadow, and to really start celebrating it. And now even when it comes out, I just perceive it as another part of who I am, just as I would perceive my light. But there's always those depths that you get to venture to and discover through the evolutionary process.
Yeah, definitely. You really need to embody those emotions and whatever's coming up for you. Once you dive down and find out what it is and what it's doing as far as in your journey, like I totally agree with that. Embody it and be it, accept it. Like this is a part of you that needs to integrate, to come into neutral and come into balance. And the more we suppress these things and push them and not like actually feel these emotions and feel these things, like I had just dealt with like a grief and really like coming into this grief part of me that I had like really suppressed. And you know, it was a rough week when I was like embodying that grief and just being present with myself in it. But man, when I really allowed myself to sit with it and be in that space, it allowed so much more energy to come into that and integration like happen. Then days after that, I felt all this like restored energy of just like more wholeness. You know what I mean? Where you were like, okay, like I'm really feeling myself now. You know what I mean? And that's why like feeling your body and feeling your emotions and being really connected and present is so part of this journey. And it can, you know, it can be overwhelming and it can, you know, be hard. But it's so worth the trip. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that's why I just assure people that it's worth it.
It really is. And I love how you alluded to how energized you felt afterwards, because so much of our power is trapped up in the suppressed emotions, the guilt, the shame, the trauma, the things that we don't allow ourselves to be present with. So when we actually get into them in our body, it just liberates so much of our power and it renews. And that's kind of the gift on the other side of that coin.
Yeah. It's like being able to breathe deeper. I've had clients also say like, wow, I can breathe better. You know, I can taking fuller breaths. And it's like, yeah, it's because you're not all like tight, you know, and like held up, restricted. You're like allowing, you're unfolding. And as you're unfolding like a lotus or a flower, you begin to get more depth and more breath. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah. Jen, is anything coming through for you?
Just, you know, so much more of the same. And really I'm being reminded of some instances within myself recently of going there with some of those shadowy aspects where, like you were saying, Ken, it's like, whoa, hey, I thought I've already gone down this merry-go-round a number of times. I thought we already worked on this. And there's always kind of a deeper layer to investigate. But the interesting thing I've noticed recently is, yes, it just kind of seems to be, it just is all kind of comes to the surface now automatically. It's no longer where we need to do these deep, almost like investigation sessions on ourselves. The energy is supporting that releasing and that movement of any of those kind of stagnant areas or areas we've been hiding from. But then the point I want to make is that I'm finding that when those releases are coming, they no longer have that real heavy pain, like the actual visceral feeling of releasing it. It's almost like just going there nullifies the charge. It's no longer those, you know, I'm sure you guys can remember whenever you both got into this type of work with yourself, those just heart-wrenching periods and that just deep pain that often comes with some of these releases. And it's just interesting to me watching things come up that I've still been avoiding And when they come up, it's like there's no need to avoid it anymore. Basically, it's not as I guess heavy or as dense, I feel, as maybe it used to be. Do you guys connect to that at all?
Yeah, I definitely connect to that. I think that now it's just there's an okayness. This is here. I'm just going to be with this, and it's is equally lovable. So there's a deeper understanding of what unconditional love is, and that encompasses our own being and how we give that to ourselves, that compassion, and it just becomes so much more natural. Okay, this is here, I'm going to be with it, and so much of that resistance has been removed, and it's so much easier and faster to cycle through those things than it used to be, for sure. Yeah. So Ken, I would love to, I'm really fascinated by the work that you do with electrokinesis, telekinesis, working with the elements. And I would just love to hear more about that and how you got started and what you are focusing on now in your work.
Wow, well, that's it's quite a story for sure. I kind of, it's about an hour-long story, but in a nutshell, I had an awakening experience that was like no other. Basically, I activated within one day. Could hear animals talk and see energy. I spent time in like lucid, basically awake dream states on the beach where I trained on how to like connect with elemental energy. One of the visions is I was out on Lake Michigan in Lotus, hovering over the water, and around my body were ripples going out in every direction. And I was guided to then play with the height and level of the ripple, and I was getting them, 10, 12 feet tall, then stories tall. And I just did this for about 4 hours with all the elemental energy, growing trees, collapsing trees, moving hills, like landscape, like all these really dramatic things. And when I got back into my body, I knew that we could do that here. And that kind of began the process of like working with elemental energy, basically every waking moment since then. Started teaching energy about 3 years ago, and yeah, it's been quite a ride. I would say to anyone that wants to get into working with your energy signature and connecting with the energy that's all around that we all can do, you are going to speed up the process of your whole self-mastery work. So shadow work and all of that stuff, that's all going to come to the surface quicker. You're going to reflect and mirror everything in the reality much faster. You're going to have a lot more energy. You got to get quick on your manifestation game, because you're going to start manifesting everything. And basically how I saw started, like how I was woke up basically, was meditation. It got really connected with like meditating. I had enough was enough. I'd went through a divorce, and I was like, I want to figure out what's really going on. And I just kind of dove in, and 8 months later, I had this awakening. I got up to meditate in about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes a day. I was having all these experiences and like, vibrating my body and getting to 0 point and collecting all this information, having out-of-body experiences. All this stuff had kind of come through, and the more information I got, I was like coming down to this like singularity point, and then it was like basically downloaded into me, basically more of myself, because all is self. And when I got out through all the levels, and I realized that everything is actually us, and we are everything. And the more you see that, you can get more connection, and it's all about the sentience all around. See, everything is conscious and everything is intelligent, and we can connect to everything. Animals, trees, all the energy, water, fire, earth, like it's all basically tangible. It all communicates. And for a long time, we've just been stagnant in it. This is basically our fundamental, like, natural ability is to connect with elemental energy. Like our ancestors were doing it for eons. So.
Yes. So what is your relationship with the elementals like? I've got my friend here. Do you? Oh, her name is Luna. She's a dog. I'm going to tilt the camera down so that you can see her. She's so beautiful. Hi. She's playing with me while we're talking. But what's coming up, because I can really sense and feel in your words through the awakening that you had, how you felt ultra connected to more of yourself in that. And I feel like there's some type of relationship that you share with the elementals to do this kind of work. And I would love to hear how you communicate with them, how you connect with them, how you change the movement of the energy.
Yeah, it's basically all done through intention and will and your energy signature. The elementals communicate basically through telepathic connection. So it's all basically done in the mind. You can talk out aloud, but it's basically this like knowing. And once you like make the initial connection to like the sentience like around you. So I always tell students, like, go out and find like the park, or you take certain walks. Well, next time you take a walk, like notice the trees that you like, and like actually start having like introductions to elemental energy through the trees, basically is where you start. And through that, you start basically this relationship with the energy, with the trees. A little tidbit is like, you know, the trees actually like work with the wind a lot. So like the wind is like tied into the trees. As funny as that sounds, it's actually kind of the, you know, it's the way it is. So like as you connect with the trees, you get a connection to the wind, and everything is really like water. It's very fluid. Like a lot of the connections are very similar because of all like the elemental energies are like those primary energies are some of the oldest consciousness on the grid. And especially like storm energy too, like storms, those are like consciousnesses themselves, like each storm. And you can connect with that. Yeah. And the light.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I'm staying right now on Lake Michigan, and we had a storm like 3 weeks ago, and I was working with the lightning, and I ended up pulling a bolt like right in the yard, right in front of me, and it was the closest one I'd ever had. And it's just amazing when you can really connect to that energy and the lightning. Like another thing is like everyone has their own color lightning. And when you start playing with elemental energy and start connecting to storms, you'll notice like the lightning being a certain color, like purple, pink, yellow, green, blue, like, and I've taken students out, and when they're like connecting with the storm, you'll notice that the lightning that comes down will be different colored. So that's something that people that are listening, if they want to like try this, which everyone can do this, they can just, you know, kind of connect into the storm and watch the lightning change from what it was when it was just a storm running, when they actually put their intention out. So it's a really natural relationship. You know, people always ask me like, oh, what are you thinking about? What are you visualizing when you move things or when you connect with the wind? And it's not about a belief. It's about a knowing. And this is like a knowing that I have inside of me. And as you transition, you'll become to like access this knowing. And that just gives you like basically the sense that it's you, that it's really you are the wind, you are the trees, you are the fire, you are the water. Like that's actually your conscious energy. That's like your ancestral ancient like roots, is that when it was just the elements here. So those elements are still here. The trees are still here. I mean, there's a lot of trees that aren't here, but basically that grid underneath that connected with the fungus, that how everything communicates under that line, and how all the trees are receiving information from above through all the streaming information that's coming in. They're like big antennas. And so they convert light to information. And so you can always go out and access information from trees, just like you can access information from large stones. Like if you can find crystal quartz crystal stones, or even limestone buildings and stones themselves, you can access information on a stone. I was in a college 4 years ago, and there was this large like crystal in the center of this, like, it was a main area between a bunch of buildings, and students walked around it all day. And the stone had been there for like 60 years. And I was there with some students training, and we were doing some wind stuff at the college. And I just felt drawn to go up to this huge granite stone. And I walked up to it, and I put my hand on it. And as soon as I like connected in, it was like I saw like fast forward of like the beginning of when the stone was placed there, and like the people in time lapse, like running around the stone, and like another building being built around it, and like the whole memory right up to the point. And I like shot off of it. And my friend, he was like looking at me like in this trance, and he was like, I came back too. He was like, whoa. He's like, where did you go, man? I was seeing all the memories. I was seeing all the information. So this is what's out here on our reality, is that there's this untouched information and connection that us as humans have like lost. We've lost this natural ability. And so what I teach is for people to reawaken or remember who they are, and the access to all this information, which just makes life so much more rich. It's like fullness of yourself, and the wholeness of all that is like all around you always. Like you're always in the arms of the beloved. That's something that has like come up about a month ago. Someone said that to me, and I had dealt with a bunch of deep like cycle work and shadow work that was all kind of coming to a head. And I was kind of in a tough space coming off of like a summer tour with workshops. And I was like working through this stuff and like manifesting certain things. And that just really hit home for me. We are always in the arms of the beloved. We're always like surrounded by ourselves. It's all us. Like, you know, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Like that thing outside of ourselves that like, that's us. Like we put ourselves in here, and like, you have to remember that it's so tangible when you start to shift your awareness and start to see everything as an aspect of yourself, starting to connect with all these energy that's all around you. And it's wanting that awareness. It's looking for that connection, and it just wants to have that communication and that relationship. And once you start doing that, it's so tangible and it's so much fun. It's like play times 10, because all of life just becomes so rich. Like every person you meet, you start getting that phase of like synchronicity, right? And you're riding that wave, and you're not holding on to expectations, and you're connected to the energy, and you're being guided by the wind. You're being guided by the sounds. You're being guided by animals, by people. You're always like perfectly guided. And it's an amazing ride. I call it's like riding, it's like surfing. And that's where you want to be, is riding those synchronicities.
It's so beautiful to just jump into the flow of that. And what I feel from what you're saying is that connection is accessible to all of us in every moment. And it's not this elusive thing that exists outside of us, but it's available through our connection to the expression of form, all form as consciousness in the physical. So creating that relationship with yourself, your body, your environment, the trees, the mountains, the stars, this table, the lake, everything, and communicating with it and seeing what it has to say, how it wants to speak with us, what it wants to share, the wisdom it has to impart to us, and really receiving that from our environment all the time. So what they're bringing me to now is wherever you go, there you are. And it's a literal manifestation of consciousness that is around us at all times. And so that connection is available, even if it's not a human connection in that moment, simply to our environment that we're inhabiting, and that all things contain creative intelligence, and that we can make that connection at any moment if we are perceiving ourselves as connected to all that is, instead of thinking that we are somehow separate from that. Because the truth is, and then to take the whole notion of separation being an illusion a layer deeper, literally, you cannot separate from yourself. And that's why it's such an illusion of the mind that makes you think and feel in certain moments that you are somehow separate or alone, because there's always something available to connect to. And it's just our perception of what is around us and our openness to it, really, our openness to form relationship and to receive what is in our environment as well, to gain that wisdom and that understanding. And then you always feel connected wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever's happening. And that's when you really start to get into that wave, because you are experiencing fluid connection at all times.
Yeah, definitely. It's that state of being, that hyper awareness. And as humans, we're just so caught up into these screens we're talking on right now, and we have this complete misconnection with humans themselves. So like, as far as just looking at someone in their eyes and really like connecting with that person. And so you got to put the phones down. You got to get away from the TV, get outside, and like start tangibly interfacing with the reality. You know, we're so hopped up on these computers and everything, we don't realize that we're in something that's kind of similar. And so that we can start interfacing with this reality, and we can start making these connections and realizing that all is self, and that we're being guided, like always being guided. And there's constantly messages coming through. You can really extend your awareness. And I teach a whole level of hyper awareness where you start being able to like look at like little sounds and sirens and horns and certain chirps and noises when you're communicating, and being aware of these things. And they can help guide you in conversation, let you know when something is true or false. They can put you in a certain situation. You know, you stop getting upset about traffic and traffic lights and situations, and you realize that you are part of the reality, and your internal vibration is actually what's causing the reality to unfold. And as you begin to like calm your energy, traffic begins to flow. And oh my gosh, when I have intention that I could move the traffic and I could help the traffic along, oh look, and all of a sudden all clears up. You can start having an interaction with the reality, instead of the whole victim mentality that we're just merely here and it's doing it to us. Oh my gosh, it's happening to me. Why? You can actually change it. You can affect it. You can be part of it, because you are part of it. This is all energy, frequency, and vibration. And as you are vibrating, and as you become more amplified, because everyone, let me tell you, everyone right now in the reality is like getting more amplified. And all their stuff is coming up. And so now is the perfect time to not react to our emotions, to use our emotions as signals, as gauges, and to realize like where we're at and what's coming up for us, and to start having sincerity and like looking at everyone as part of us, and realizing that I am actually affecting the reality. And if I want to make change in my like sphere of change, like the people right around me, the environment, my workplace, where I go, and what I can actually start affecting, and start looking at the big picture, then we really begin to dial it in and see that the reality is totally connected in with us. We've just been so detached from it and so caught up. So as you bring everything closer back to home, then you begin to evaluate really where you're at, and then you realize that all is self, and that you can really begin to tap in and activate. Like people always are like after the abilities, you know, a lot of young people, and I turn a lot of students away because, you know, it's not about cultivating power. It's not about control. It's about cooperation, and it's about harmony. It's becoming harmonic with the system. And so all these things that I do, and all these paranormal things that are available through side effects, basically, as you begin to harmonize yourself and become in harmony with yourself in your reality, then these are actually side effects of a balanced state of being. And that all of these things, and moving things with your mind, and telekinetics, and clairvoyance, and ESP, and seeing energy, and feeling energy, and sensing things, these are all things that come from cultivating meditation, cultivating awareness, sincerity, cultivating that really being aware and present. And as you begin to cultivate these things and meditate, quiet the monkey mind and learn how to become neutral into the no mind and begin to hold that space, then these energies begin to surface as you begin to turn on, as these areas of your ectrogen system, or what people would call chakras, they begin to activate. And as these things, your pineal gland begins to activate and release more DMT, you begin to have more awareness and more sense. You begin to connect into energy, feel energy, sense energy, tangibly begin to affect energy, and then all of these side effects or abilities begin to come to the forefront. But this is something that you just don't pursue these abilities. These are just side effects of self-mastery.
That's really beautiful. I love that you're talking about the harmonics of the system, because this is the pinnacle of influence right here, is to come into resonance with all that we are in order that we can cooperate with the energy and move it and shift it in new directions. And what you're speaking to is true power, being in the center, being at that point of equilibrium, and then moving. And so what's coming through right now is the choice of the I am will, because when you are that centered and that calm, you can extend your energy out into the full embodiment of all that you are, and you move yourself, and it becomes like a work of art, that you're interacting and interfacing with yourself in this way. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I think that's where the excitement starts to come in too, and the exhilaration and the empowerment of self, knowing that you can shift the creation, and play with the creation and be the artist in the grand creation. And it's just so beautiful and so powerful.
Yes. Yeah, that's you nailed it. That was so beautifully said. Yeah, you begin to like extend your field, and then you really begin to be not the creator but the originator. So these are originations, and so you can begin to really like this. It's malleable, and you really begin to be excitable, and that's that playful nature of what we've been told through the whole ages, right? Getting back to the childlike, and it's not to be like children, but it's to that nature, that playful nature of what life is, and being a neutral state of like being able to hold it all. And once you are in that state of like it's holding it all and not holding it, it's the paradox, you begin to allow it, and it just flows. It's like the flow, it's the zen or the zone, you know what I mean? It's all these things that like dial you in to that flow state of consciousness where you don't even think. There is no thought. You know, people always are asking me, what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about when you're moving something with your mind? What do you, and it's like, guys, that's not it, man. It's the non-thought. It's the neutral mind. It's the knowing. It's like, you know, man, it's the Wuji, man. It's like you're not, you know, you're not thinking about moving the wind. You are the wind. You just move. You know, feel your body. You know, the universe operates in like feels like, you know, it's like a feeling. You know, a lot of people, you know, feel things, and it's like it's true. It's like you know, our ancestors would feel the, you know, they do the rain dance. Feel the rain on their face, and they feel the mud between their toes, right? They'd smell the rain. Like they would get into that space when it was hot and dry, and they were out there, you know, calling in the rain, connecting with the elementals. They were feeling it. And that's part of creating or originating or engineering a reality, is basically feeling that and knowing. You know, it's not believing. Like if I were to say, hey, everyone, I believe we can make it to the top of this mountain. Or the guy next to me, he goes, hey, everyone, I know we can make it. Let's go. Well, y'all are going to go with that dude. Y'all ain't going with me, because I'm like, I believe we can go. Like, I believe. Right. And people know that. It's like a sense in yourself. You feel it. When someone says they know, it like resonates inside. You're like, okay, she knows. I'm going with her. Like, that's what I know.
It's that certainty. It's that certainty of self-awareness, knowing thyself truly. And what I'm feeling too, and what you're saying, is the power of frequency embodiment, frequency attunement, and also visualization. So getting into the embodiment of the wind, feeling it, being it, seeing yourself as it, and getting into that flow. And it's when I call in the elements, I do that exact same thing. I hear the thunder, I see the lightning, and I just be in that vision, and I give thanks. I just feel thankful as I'm doing it. It's kind of, but the resonance is gratitude. I don't always say thank you, but I'm feeling it, and that's that harmony, the symmetry with the energy, and then it goes, okay, and that creation comes. And I love that you said the originator instead of the creator, because you're originating a new movement, you're originating, you're sculpting, you're shaping, you're shifting and transforming versus actually creating. And then that's actually getting into nothing ever being created or destroyed, because it's pure beingness always.
Yeah, it's in the now. Creation, the word creation means to reduplicate something that's already been established or originated. So an origination is something that comes from real authenticity of heart. And when you're in the now, connecting with the tangible consciousness that's all around, you're in origination. You're in the now, that state where we're all actually in. But we're so not present with life, because we're so caught up. There's and we're not even present with our bodies. We have to get back to being present with this body that we're in, and feeling it and being here. I had, my biggest thing was I had a pineal gland activation. So I was all upper triangle, ungrounded, went broke, my business failed. I couldn't even get currency because I was so activated. But you have to get that ground to create amperage to hold current, which is that whole thing. So oh man.
Yeah.
It can really be a journey.
That's really, I love how you just said that, so that you can ground, so you can actually be a grounding rod for that voltage, because that's exactly what it's like. That's where you take that power and that activated electric charge, and you actually ground it into the earth, and through that openness. I mean, I feel like that openness, that presence and connection truly provides for us, that's when things actually relax and they can come in, or they can show up or shift. Even they can shift and move and transform into something new. But we can get into those holding patterns when we don't have anywhere to ground that upper chakra energy. And I think that for me, it feels kind of like and I've said this a couple times before, where all the energy comes in almost like rays of a sun to my center. So it's actually coming up from the earth. It's coming from the galactic center. It's coming out from around me, and it's coming into my heart. And then my heart is what is creating the movement and connecting in with the soul of the world, like you were speaking to, Jen. I think on Monday you mentioned that, and you're really making a connection there with the energy. But I think that's the primary step is, one, making that connection for starters, understanding that you have the ability and the power to move it, and then actually grounding that frequency in through presence, so that the shifts that you are intending to create can come into your experience, come into your reality.
And they can come through heart. Like you said, they can come through heart space, because it's all leading through heart. If you're too much in the mind, or you can't communicate with anyone, all in the upper triangle, you're too low grounded in the down in the root, you're not really, it's all about the heart. It's take grounding that so you can communicate, and then communicating through the heart, just streaming the heart. Even when you're connecting with objects, trying to move objects, it's all heart. People don't understand that. I'm not using my mind, I'm using my heart. I breathe through my heart, and then the object moves. Whoa, it is mind over matter, but the mind and the heart must merge. We must take the pineal and the heart, and we must merge these two into this, and guide everything in your life through open heartness. So if you have a closed in heart, you will always attract things that are closed off. You will always need protection to be protected from something. there's nothing to be protected from. It's all self. Like when you unlock your heart, like all that stuff that was just showing you that you had a closed heart all goes away. Like, you know, I experienced it in my own life. Like, it just like, I mean, especially what I got into, like, you know, there's some interesting things that went on with some interesting characters, and, you know, because I was still holding fear. You know what I mean? There was some, I kind of was on the radar for the government and some things, like when it first all happened. So it was an interesting thing. And it's funny, your whole video just glitched, like completely froze when I said that. But
I know, I'm curious as to what you said, but I heard that. I knew something was happening there.
Yeah. So when I like let all that go and like really started connecting with my heart, all that fell away, and there is no need to be in fear of anything when you really start taking like your energy signature seriously, when you start really taking your journey and leading with an open heart and deciding that you have been affecting the reality the whole time, and now you're going to be present with it. Now you're actually going to like, I'm going to decide to open my heart and not have a cold heart. And I'm not going to, you know, lead like I've been living. I'm going to try something different. And that's so important, is to really dive in and jump through, because the reality is showing you, because of all the wildness going on right now, like in la fake matrix land, is telling you to like do it. Like right now, if you're listening to me, I'm telling you to do it. Like quit your job, leave your spouse, like do something extreme and drastic. Have you been wanting to do something your entire life? Well, guess what? Do it now. Have you been wanting to start that business, or have you been wanting to tell that person how you really, really felt? Do it now. Like play your card. Like do what you've been waiting. I say play your trump card. That's what I call it. Play your trump card and like make it happen for you today. Like don't wait. Everything's lining up with the system and the zodiac. Like we're coming into like a really big point right now. Like, you know, the veil is really thin always this time of year. Like don't be distracted. You know, we had a huge distraction with the whole Halloween thing. That's, you know, meant to siphon off energy, and it all goes to this thing. It's like, that's distraction. We have Christmas coming up. That's a big time for manifestation. Like, I know the family, you got to get out there. I understand that, but take some time for you to work on what you're like bringing into the reality. What are your originations? What are your like passions for life? And like spend time working on that. You know, don't get caught up in the games, because it's like a zoo. It's the same stuff every year, you know, and they're just wasting your time out there. You're an originator. You're a divine supreme being, everyone. So like take the action. Like I took action in my life just recently, and a bunch of stuff shifted that I've been wanting to get forward in the reality. So, you know, always be looking forward and always be in that non-expectation state. I kind of just went off on a little tangent there, but I feel like somebody watching that needed that little message.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for going on that tangent. I like how you talked about polarizing too, and going to the extreme and kind of playing your trump card and getting back in your power and making that decision to change your life and to create, affect, originate, change in the direction that you want to move in. It's really powerful. When we make those bold moves, that's when so much revelation and data pours through. The DNA gets highly activated. And there's also, I mean, yeah, everything shifts. It's like one world crumbles and dissolves, and another one starts to phase in and come into being. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a whirlwind, but it's worth it on the, yeah.
It's worth it on. I just feel like there's a lot of people with complacency out there, and you know, sometimes upheaval's already coming because of what's all happening. Like it's coming, so just like jump on board, and like, you know, if you're doing it and you're taking action, you know, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're sitting at home and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you were how I was years ago, like before this journey, like just take the simple fact that I'm going to meditate 5 minutes a day. If that's all you can do, if that's your Athibo, I'm going to shut the TV off. I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to go for a nature hike and I'm going to do what this guy said. I'm going to go out and I'm going to connect to some trees. You know, just start making these changes, take this action, and that will really start to make it move. The upheaval will come as you start to take the action, because a lot of us are really stuck in these spaces and we need kind of that shift so that we can really make that change. And like you said, like the DNA can start really activating and all this energy because we've been so stagnant. So, yeah. I mean, I don't always tell people to jump in like that, but hey, there was definitely that needed to come forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's time. It's time for us as a collective to start going there and to really stop being so afraid of getting present and getting fluid and riding that wave and being the ones to evoke change and elicit change and create what it is that we want for ourselves. And at a certain point, you just have to jump in, and that integration can start to happen and unfold really rapidly when you do make those bold moves and you just go for it. Accelerated evolution.
What are you waiting for? You know, we're always, what are you waiting for? It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so much. Oh my gosh. It's just like so full, all of it. Like even dealing with all this shit in your life, like all the stuff you've been like, oh my God, well, if I go forward with this journey, like they're talking about all this stuff that, you know, my guilt and, you know, my self-worth is going to come up and maybe my anger is going to come up, you know, all this stuff, but it's so worth it. Like, oh my gosh, I got to be present with my grief, and it's so worth feeling it. Like you're alive. You're a human. Like feel your body, feel your emotion, like be present with yourself. Like do it. Like it's so worth it, you know? Unplug the TV and plug into yourself.
Yes, that's beautiful. Well, if you guys feel really complete, Jen, if you have anything to add, I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Yeah. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for being here and adding your wisdom and your energy to the conversation. Really appreciate having you. If you have anywhere that people can get a hold of you, check out your work, see what you're about. For those who resonated, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. So under Ken Chorley, Chorley. It's the same name for YouTube. You know, you can check out my video, subscribe. I also do events. I'm actually doing an event in Detroit, Michigan on November 10th, 11th, and 12th. And it's called the Awaken Empowerment Expo. And people can basically, for $65, come to my workshop, and I will teach you how to activate yourself. I will teach you meditations. You will learn how to move things with your mind, inside and outside. And that's going on in Detroit in November. So that's what's happening as of late. I do have an intensive that's going to be in Costa Rica in January, but I'm not sure the details on that yet. But connect with me on Facebook and I'll stay in touch.
Very cool. Well, thank you so very much for being here. Jen, if you have anything you would like to add.
No, just thank you so much for presenting us with your wisdom and your knowledge today. It was a great gift to have you on. And
Hey, it was a real pleasure, ladies. You know, keep doing what you're doing, keep bringing awareness and sharing your hearts and being like authentic and vulnerable, because people really need to see, you know, the journey. And that's what I've been on about. I've been on Facebook only since I woke up, to basically just bring forth the journey of what is possible. And so, you know, us together, I love to support you guys. The divine feminine, you know, and establishing divine feminine in us males is really important. That was the whole, really, when I woke up, I like turned into a lady almost. Like it was so strong, the divine feminine. There was so much feminine nature that came out of me. And I was like a guy, you know what I mean? Like, like shooting, racing cars, 4-wheel drives, like major And so I had a complete shift and then came into harmony and balance with self. So it's all about bringing that feminine energy forward. And I just love and support all that are in that journey. So thanks
Very
again, guys.
beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, Ken. We'll stay in touch. It was beautiful to have you. And thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight and listening. We will see you back here on Friday. We love you guys.
Love you. Thank you.
Wholeness.
Bye.